The wedding invitation was staring back at me from my husband's phone screen, and for a moment, I thought I was losing my mind. Ryan Michael Thompson and Jessica Marie Collins request the honour of your presence. My hands were trembling so violently I almost dropped the phone. This had to be some kind of sick joke, some elaborate prank that my brain couldn't process. But there it was, in elegant script font, complete with venue details and RSVP information. My husband of 3 years was getting married. To someone else. I had to read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. The date was set for next month. The venue was the same country club where we'd had our own reception 3 years ago. And the groom? The man who'd kissed me goodbye that very morning, promising to pick up Thai food on his way home from work. You know that feeling when your entire world tilts sideways, when everything you thought you knew suddenly becomes a lie. That's exactly what happened to me in that moment. I was sitting in our bedroom, in our house, surrounded by our wedding photos, reading about my husband's upcoming wedding to another woman. The worst part, I'd only picked up his phone because it kept buzzing while he was in the shower. I thought it might be work. Ryan was always getting urgent calls about some project or another. I was just going to silence it for him. Instead, I found myself staring at months of text messages between my husband and his soulmate Jessica. "Can't wait to make you my wife," one message read. "You're the first person who's ever made me want to commit to forever." Forever? What about the forever he'd promised me? What about the vows we'd exchanged in front of our families and friends? What about the anniversary trip we'd been planning for next month? The same month he was apparently getting married to someone else. I scrolled through message after message, each one feeling like a knife twisting in my chest. They talked about their future together, their dream honeymoon in Italy, the house they wanted to buy. They discussed wedding plans, guest lists, and flower arrangements. They even talked about having children together, something Ryan had been putting off with me for the past year, claiming he wasn't ready yet. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. Jessica had no idea I existed, not as his wife, anyway. In their conversations, Ryan occasionally mentioned his roommate Emily. Apparently, that's how he'd been explaining my presence in his life. His roommate, not his wife, not his partner. His roommate who helped split the rent and utilities. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that I actually felt physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my body rejecting the reality of what I'd just discovered. 3 years of marriage, and I was nothing more than a roommate to him. A convenience, a lie he told to make his living situation sound more casual. I could hear Ryan humming in the shower, completely oblivious to the fact that his entire world was about to implode. He was probably thinking about his day at work, maybe wondering what Jessica was doing, planning their perfect future together. Meanwhile, I was sitting on our bathroom floor, clutching his phone, trying to understand how the man I'd fallen in love with could be capable of such elaborate deception. That's when I started really digging. I went through his email, his social media accounts, his browser history. What I found made everything so much worse. Ryan had been living a complete double life for over a year. At work, he was the eligible bachelor that every woman wanted to date. He'd been taking Jessica to office parties, company retreats, and client dinners, all while I was at home, waiting for him to come back from his business events. The company Christmas party last year, the one he said was boring and not worth me taking time off work for, he'd taken Jessica as his date. The weekend conference in Miami, Jessica was his +1. The client dinner where he said wives weren't invited, Jessica was sitting right next to him in the photos I found on his colleague's Facebook page. I remembered that night clearly. I'd made his favourite dinner, lit candles, worn the dress he'd bought me for our anniversary. When he came home 3 hours late, claiming the client dinner had run long, I didn't question it. I trusted him. I trusted him completely. But the absolute worst part was realising that I'd met Jessica before, multiple times, at company events that I'd attended as his friend. She'd shaken my hand, complimented my dress, asked about my job. She was actually nice, sweet even, and she had no idea that the man she was planning to marry was already married to me. Ryan had introduced me as Emily, a good friend of mine every single time. Not once had he claimed I was his wife. Not once had he shown even the slightest hint that we were anything more than friends. And I'd gone along with it, assuming he was just being professional, keeping work and personal life separate. I was such an idiot. The shower turned off and I could hear Ryan moving around in the bedroom. I quickly put his phone back exactly where I'd found it and tried to compose myself. But inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was planning something that would make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd made me feel like I was the other woman in my own marriage. "Hey, beautiful," Ryan called out as he emerged from the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist. "What's for dinner? I'm starving." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a complete stranger. This man who'd been sharing my bed, eating my cooking, using my love as a cover story for his real relationship. This man who'd been planning a wedding while married to me. "I was thinking we could order something," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Maybe Thai food?" "Perfect," he smiled, kissing my forehead. "You're the best roommate a guy could ask for." He said it as a joke, but I heard the truth in it. That's all I was to him. That's all I'd ever been. And in that moment, I decided that Ryan Michael Thompson was about to learn what happens when you try to play two women at the same time. The revenge I was planning would be legendary. That night, I lay in bed next to Ryan, watching him sleep peacefully while my mind raced with possibilities. He was snoring softly, completely unaware that his wife knew everything. Completely unaware that his comfortable little world was about to come crashing down around him. I didn't sleep. How could I? Instead, I spent the entire night planning his destruction piece by piece. The next morning, Ryan kissed me goodbye like always, grabbed his coffee and headed off to work, probably to see his precious Jessica. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. I called in sick to my job, claiming food poisoning, and spent the day becoming a detective in my own life. First, I needed to know everything about Jessica. Not just what I'd seen in Ryan's messages, but everything. Her social media profiles, her background, her family, her friends. I needed to understand exactly who my husband had fallen in love with while he was married to me. What I discovered made my blood boil even more. Jessica Collins wasn't just some random office colleague. She was the company's new marketing director, brought in 6 months ago from their Chicago branch. She was accomplished, beautiful, and worst of all, she genuinely seemed like a good person. Her Instagram was full of charity work, family photos, and posts about her rescue dogs. She didn't deserve this either. Ryan wasn't just betraying me. He was setting her up for the most humiliating revelation of her life. And that's when I realized something crucial. Jessica wasn't my enemy. She was another victim in Ryan's elaborate game of deception. But knowing that didn't make me feel any less angry. It just made me more determined to expose Ryan for the manipulative liar he really was. I spent the next week gathering evidence. I made copies of everything, our marriage certificate, our joint bank statements, our wedding photos, even the lease agreement that had both our names on it. I collected 3 years' worth of proof that Ryan Michael Thompson was a married man, not the eligible bachelor he'd been pretending to be. But I needed more than just evidence. I needed a plan that would hurt him as much as he'd hurt me. And that's when I saw it, the engagement party invitation in his email. Jessica's family was throwing them a big celebration at the downtown Hilton. 200 guests, including everyone from their office, both their families, and all their friends. Perfect. I RSVP'd using my maiden name, Emily Morrison, claiming I was a friend of the groom from college. I even added a +1, knowing I'd need backup for what I was planning. The response came back within hours. "So excited to meet you. Ryan has told me so much about his college friends." Another lie. Ryan hadn't told her anything about me, because in his version of reality, I didn't exist as anything more than a roommate. The next 2 weeks were the most difficult of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal, while living with the man who'd been systematically erasing me from his life. I had to smile when he talked about work, knowing he was really talking about Jessica. I had to act interested when he mentioned his business trips, knowing he was planning his fake wedding. But the hardest part was watching him lie to my face every single day. When he claimed he was working late, I knew he was with her. When he said he was too tired for date night, I knew he was saving his energy for someone else. When he postponed our anniversary dinner, claiming work was too busy, I knew he was probably ring shopping. The worst moment came when I found the receipt for Jessica's engagement ring hidden in his wallet. $25,000. For comparison, my engagement ring had cost him $3,000, and I'd been grateful for it. But Jessica got the princess treatment, the fairy tale proposal, the ring that cost more than some people's cars. That's when I decided to take things up a notch. I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed to know if there were other women, other lies, other secrets Ryan was keeping. What I discovered was both better and worse than I'd imagined. There were no other women, but there was something else, something that would make my revenge even sweeter. David Chen, Ryan's best man, and supposed best friend since college, had been having an affair with his own wife for the past year, and he'd been confiding in Ryan about it, using their friendship as cover for his own deception. The investigator had photos, text messages, hotel receipts, everything. David was cheating on his wife Sarah with a woman named Monica from his gym, and Ryan knew all about it. In fact, he'd been helping David cover it up, providing alibis and even lending him money for his secret dates. Two cheaters protecting each other's lies. It was perfect. I reached out to David directly using a fake email address. I told him I knew about Monica and that I had proof. I said I'd keep quiet if he did me one small favour. I needed him to be at the engagement party, and I needed him to follow my lead when the time came. David agreed immediately, probably terrified that his wife would find out. Little did he know, I was planning to expose him too. The day before the engagement party, I treated myself to the most expensive makeover of my life. Hair, nails, makeup, the works. I bought a stunning red dress that cost more than our monthly mortgage payment, and I charged it to our joint credit card. If Ryan wanted to play games with money, I'd show him how that game was played. I also prepared something special for the party. I created a photo collage of our wedding day, our honeymoon, our anniversary celebrations, all the moments that Ryan had been pretending never happened. I had it printed on poster board, professional quality, impossible to ignore. But the real masterstroke was my +1. I invited Ryan's mother. Carol Thompson had no idea her son was already married. In Ryan's version of events, I was just his roommate, who helped with expenses. She'd never understood why he was so secretive about his love life, why he never brought anyone home for holidays. She'd been thrilled when he finally told her about Jessica, his first serious relationship. I called Carol and told her I had a surprise for Ryan at the engagement party, something that would show everyone how much his college friends cared about him. She was delighted to help, especially when I mentioned that she'd finally get to meet some of the people from Ryan's past. The night of the party, I got dressed like I was going to war, because that's exactly what I was doing. I was about to destroy my husband's entire fabricated life, and I was going to look absolutely stunning while doing it. As I put on my lipstick, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. For the first time in months, I looked alive. I looked powerful. I looked like a woman who was about to get the justice she deserved. Ryan was already at the venue, helping Jessica's family with last-minute preparations. He had no idea that his wife was about to walk into his engagement party with his mother, armed with 3 years of evidence and a plan that would leave him with nothing. I grabbed my purse, my evidence folder, and my poster board. It was time to go to war. The Hilton ballroom was absolutely stunning. Jessica's family had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and a string quartet playing softly in the corner. It looked like a scene from a fairy tale, which made what I was about to do feel even more deliciously wicked. I walked in with Carol Thompson on my arm, both of us fashionably late as planned. She looked elegant in her navy dress, completely oblivious to the bomb I was about to drop. "Oh, Emily," she whispered, "this is gorgeous. Jessica's family certainly knows how to throw a party." "They certainly do," I agreed, scanning the room for Ryan. "Just Wait until you see the surprise I have planned. The ballroom was packed with at least 200 guests, all mingling and celebrating the happy couple. I spotted several faces I recognized from Ryan's office, people who'd met me as his friend Emily at various company events. Tonight, they were about to learn the truth about who I really was. Ryan was across the room, looking handsome in his black tuxedo, his arm wrapped around Jessica's waist. She looked radiant in a flowing champagne-coloured dress, her engagement ring catching the light as she gestured animatedly to a group of her friends. They looked so happy, so perfect together, it almost made me sick. "There's my son," Carol exclaimed, waving at Ryan. "Ryan, over here!" The colour drained from Ryan's face the moment he saw us. His eyes went wide, then darted between me and his mother, clearly trying to process what was happening. Jessica noticed his sudden change in demeanour and followed his gaze to where we were standing. "Mom?" Ryan's voice cracked slightly. "What are you doing here?" "Emily invited me," Carol said cheerfully, completely missing the panic in her son's eyes. "She said she had a wonderful surprise planned for you. Isn't that sweet?" Jessica looked confused, glancing between Ryan and me. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met," she said, extending her hand to me with a warm smile. "Are you one of Ryan's college friends?" "Something like that," I replied, shaking her hand. "I'm Emily. We've actually met before, but Ryan introduced me differently then." Ryan stepped forward quickly, his face flushed. "Mum, Emily, this is unexpected. Maybe we should—" "Oh, don't be silly," I interrupted, my voice sweet as honey. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. After all, it's not every day you get to watch your husband get engaged to someone else." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Jessica's smile faltered, confusion replacing her previous joy. Carol gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Several nearby guests had stopped their conversations and were now staring at us. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan was opening and closing his mouth like a fish, no words coming out. So I decided to help him. "I said, husband," I repeated, louder this time. "Ryan is my husband. We've been married for 3 years. I pulled out my phone and showed Jessica our wedding photo. Beautiful ceremony, wasn't it? Though I have to say, your engagement party is much more elaborate than our wedding was." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica stared at the photo, then at Ryan, then back at me. Carol was shaking her head in disbelief. And Ryan? Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "That's impossible," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "Ryan's never been married. He would have told me." "Would he?" I asked, pulling out the poster board I'd prepared. "Because he's been telling a lot of lies lately." I unfolded it to reveal our wedding photos, honeymoon pictures, and anniversary celebrations. 3 years of marriage, and apparently I've been his roommate this whole time. The crowd around us was growing larger, drawn by the drama unfolding. I could hear whispers spreading through the room like wildfire. Jessica's mother pushed through the crowd, her face pale as she took in the scene. "Ryan!" Jessica's voice was barely controlled. "Is this true? Are you married to her?" Ryan finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled whisper. "Jess, I can explain." "Explain?" Jessica's voice rose an octave. "Explain how you've been lying to me for over a year. Explain how you proposed to me while you were married to someone else." "It's not what you think," Ryan said desperately. "Emily and we were going to get divorced. We've been having problems." "Problems?" I laughed, the sound cutting through the room like a blade. "Is that what you call it? Because last week you were planning our anniversary trip to Napa Valley. You seemed pretty committed to our marriage then." I pulled out my phone again and showed the crowd our text messages from just days ago. Ryan telling me he loved me, making plans for our future, discussing renewing our vows. The gasps from the audience were audible now. Jessica ripped the engagement ring from her finger and hurled it at Ryan. It hit him in the chest and bounced to the floor with a small chiming sound. "You're sick," she spat. "You're absolutely sick. How could you do this to me? How could you do this to her?" "Jessica, please." Ryan reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Don't ever touch me again." Carol finally spoke up, her voice trembling with rage. "Ryan, Michael Thompson, what have you done?" "Mum, Don't you dare mum me," Carol snapped. "You've been lying to all of us. You've been lying to this sweet girl, to your own wife, to me. I raised you better than this." That's when David appeared at my side, right on cue. He'd been waiting for my signal, knowing that his own secrets were about to be exposed. "Ryan," he said quietly, "maybe we should take this somewhere private." "Oh, no," I said, turning to face David with a smile that could have frozen hell. "I think everyone should hear this. After all, we're all about honesty tonight, aren't we, David?" David's face went white. "Emily, don't what? Don't tell everyone about Monica? Don't mention how you've been cheating on your wife for the past year while helping my husband cover up his lies?" The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Sarah Chen, David's wife, pushed through the crowd with a look of pure fury. "What did you just say?" "I said your husband has been having an affair," I replied, pulling out the photos the private investigator had given me. "With Monica, from his gym. Ryan's been helping him cover it up." Sarah snatched the photos from my hands, her face cycling through disbelief, hurt and rage. "David," she said, her voice deadly quiet, "is this true?" David couldn't even look at her. His silence was answer enough. "You bastard!" Sarah screamed, slapping David across the face so hard the sound echoed through the ballroom. "You lying, cheating bastard!" The party had descended into complete chaos. Jessica was sobbing in her mother's arms while her father looked like he wanted to murder Ryan. Carol was demanding answers from her son, who was still stammering excuses that no one believed. Sarah was screaming at David while their mutual friends tried to calm her down. And me? I stood in the centre of it all, feeling more alive than I had in months. "Well," I announced to the room, my voice carrying over the chaos, "I think this party just got a lot more interesting." But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because the real surprise was still coming, and it was going to destroy everything Ryan thought he knew about his perfectly planned life. The chaos was beautiful, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. As security guards started moving toward us and Jessica's family began ushering guests toward the exits, I raised my voice one more time. "Wait!" I called out, my voice cutting through the commotion. "Before everyone leaves, there's one more thing Ryan needs to know." Ryan looked at me with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Emily, please. Haven't you done enough?" "Done enough," I laughed, pulling out my phone. "Oh, honey, I'm just getting started. You see, while you were busy playing house with Jessica and lying to everyone about our marriage, I've been doing some investigating of my own." I held up my phone, showing him a video that made his face go completely pale. It was security footage from our own home, showing Ryan in our kitchen 3 weeks ago, grinding something white and powdery into my morning coffee. "Recognize this?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. "This is you, my loving husband, drugging me. Every morning for the past 2 months. The remaining guests gasped. Jessica stopped crying and stared at the screen in horror. Even Carol looked like she might faint. "You've been putting sleeping medication in my coffee," I continued. "So, I'd be too drowsy to question your late nights, your weekend work trips, your sudden need for privacy. You've been systematically drugging your own wife to cover up your affair. That's not—" "I wasn't," Ryan stammered, but the evidence was right there on the screen. "Oh, but it gets better," I said, swiping to the next video. "Because while you were drugging me, I was wide awake. I've been pretending to be affected by your little cocktails for weeks, gathering evidence. Do you want to know what else I found?" I didn't wait for his answer. I pulled out a folder thick with documents and photos. "Financial records showing you've been stealing from our joint accounts to fund your relationship with Jessica. Hotel receipts, jewelry purchases, expensive dinners, all paid for with money that was supposed to be for our mortgage and our future." Jessica's father, a lawyer, stepped forward. "Are you saying he's been committing fraud?" "I'm saying he's been committing multiple felonies," I replied, handing him copies of the bank statements. "Fraud, theft, and drugging. Someone without consent. That's a pretty serious list of charges." But I saved the best for last. I turned to David, who was still reeling from his own exposure. David, remember that conversation you had with Ryan last month? The one where you two discussed how to make your problems disappear permanently. David's face went from white to green. Emily, don't what? Don't tell everyone about your plan to stage my accident? Don't mention how you two were discussing the best way to make me disappear so Ryan could marry Jessica without the messy complication of a divorce. The room went dead silent. Even the security guards stopped moving. You see, I continued, my voice steady despite the magnitude of what I was revealing. I've been recording everything. Every conversation, every phone call, every late-night planning session you two had in our garage. I know about the insurance policies Ryan took out on me 6 months ago. I know about the accidents you've been staging to test my reactions. The loose railing on our deck, the faulty brake lights on my car, the gas leak that mysteriously appeared and disappeared. Carol gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Ryan, tell me she's lying. But Ryan couldn't speak. He was staring at me like I was a ghost, which I suppose I was meant to be by now. The beautiful thing about being systematically poisoned, I said, is that it gave me time to plan. While you thought I was sleeping off your drugs, I was actually documenting everything. Every crime, every lie, every attempt on my life. I pulled out my phone one more time, showing them a recording app that had been running continuously. This entire conversation has been recorded and automatically uploaded to cloud storage. Copies have been sent to the police, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the city. By tomorrow morning, Ryan Michael Thompson and David Chen will be the most famous attempted murderers in the state. The words hit like a physical blow. Jessica stumbled backward, finally understanding the full scope of what she'd been pulled into. Ryan's mother looked like she aged 10 years in 10 seconds. But here's the twist that even you didn't see coming, Ryan, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire ballroom. I've been working with the FBI for the past month. This whole engagement party, it was a setup, a way to get you and David together with enough witnesses to make your confessions stick. That's when the real security showed up. Not hotel security, but federal agents who'd been posing as catering staff and wedding photographers all evening. Ryan Michael Thompson and David Chen, the lead agent announced. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and a host of other charges that will be explained to you at the station. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Ryan finally found his voice. Emily, how could you do this to me? I'm your husband. I walked over to him, close enough that only he could hear what I said next. You stopped being my husband the moment you decided I was disposable, I whispered. And you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated exactly how dangerous a woman can be when she has nothing left to lose. As they led him away, I turned to Jessica, who was still standing in shock among the ruins of her engagement party. I'm sorry you got caught up in this, I said genuinely. You seem like a good person. You deserved better than him. Jessica looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and horror. How long have you known? About the affair? 3 weeks. About the murder plot? 2 weeks. About tonight being the perfect opportunity to end this once and for all, since the moment I RSVP'd to your engagement party. The ballroom was emptying quickly now, guests fleeing the scene of what would undoubtedly be tomorrow's biggest news story. Carol approached me, tears streaming down her face. Emily, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what kind of monster my son had become. It's not your fault, I told her. You raised him right. He chose to throw that away. As I walked out of the Hilton that night, I couldn't help but smile. Ryan had thought he was so clever, so careful in his planning. He'd thought he could drug me, steal from me, and eventually kill me without anyone ever knowing the truth. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'm a forensic accountant. Finding hidden money, uncovering lies, and building airtight cases against criminals isn't just my job. It's my specialty. 3 months later, I was sitting in a federal courthouse watching Ryan and as David receive their sentences. 25 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and attempted poisoning. Jessica was there too, having become the prosecution's star witness after she'd turned over all of Ryan's gifts and helped decode his lies. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ryan had been so obsessed with living a double life that he'd forgotten the most important rule of deception: never try to con someone who's smarter than you are. As I walked out of that courthouse, officially divorced and officially free, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. Sometimes it's letting someone hang themselves with their own rope, then making sure the whole world is watching when they do it. And the best part? I documented everything so thoroughly that the story was already being turned into a Netflix series. Ryan's betrayal was going to make me rich, famous, and completely free to start over. Now that's what I call a perfect ending.